Oh, mic is so sensitive now. Hello, Jose. Hello, Andrea. Hello, Justin. Plague Tom and Sergiu were in the chat as well, but they were here before me. Someone was on time. It's awesome to have you all here. I'm gonna get started in just a minute. Oh, how many entries do we have today? How many entries? 6, 12, 13. It's gonna be packed. Hello, designer. Let me just double check if we have everyone in here. Oh no. Oh no, I'm missing someone. No, who am I missing? Hello, Untitled. Who am I missing? What? What? What's going on? I'm sorry, I'm not sharing my screen just yet because I'm trying to find a missing person over here. Let's see. Oh no! That's not what I wanted to do. Switch to this first. No spoilers. But I think there might be a chance that we're going to be painting red lips on fish again today. Let's see, but who am I missing? I'm missing one person by the looks of it. But I don't know who. Feels like yesterday that the stream happened. Oh god. Yeah. It does feel like that to me as well sometimes. But it's great to have you here, Andrea. Love to see you. Hello, Connor. And Guillaume. Let's see what is going on. It's been a pretty busy week, honestly. It's pretty busy week. We've been doing a lot of work on the course. So that's been taking up like most of my time, honestly. We had our first like kickoff meeting to invite like a bunch of new people into working with us on the course. So we're reaching out to new people, we're getting stuff organized, which is awesome. I'm doing a lot of website work, automation work, like all the back-end stuff I'm basically doing. And I'm writing like a bunch of lessons myself as well. So I'm keeping busy. I have not figured out who we're missing from the list because I think everyone is here. No, Justin. Justin is not in the list. Why is Justin not in the list? Well, that seems to be an issue on my side. So let me add you in there, Justin. Because he did some cool stuff on the debris, which I'm keen to check out. So let me chuck some of that stuff in here. And then we get started. But yeah, how was everyone else's week? Did everyone else have like a productive week this week? Did anything cool? Please let me know. It would be awesome to know what everyone's building. I know what most of the people that are taking part in Whip Wednesday are working on, right? Because we get to see it live, but yeah, it would be nice to know what other people are up to. Better week than the last one. Oh no, why, Guillaume? What happened? Hello, Hawk. Good to see you here. How are you? I'm doing good. Thank you so much for asking. It's been I said this before. I think Wednesday is my shortest day that I am at work because we have like flexible hours. So I usually make Wednesday my shortest day, and then have a little bit of a break before with Wednesday. But I was doing a mentorship right before this, so it's been back to back to back. So, I mean, not that I'm complaining though. I like being busy. So, last week was challenging. How's Sergiu? I mean, you don't have to go into it. Was it because of the project or something else? Sergiu is saying, I agree, Andrea. It's great to be a part of a community that shares the same passion and ambitions. Yeah, it's lovely to see you all here, gathered around the fire of environment art. Yeah, Andrea was basically saying, I love being a part of this community again. It doesn't translate like some of the emojis, so it's eyes purple crying, so we'll just assume that it's a purple guy crying. Not all the time that I'm surrounded by artists. Yeah. That's lovely. It's lovely to have you here. And it is... I know how that feels, though, because I was literally talking about this with our team. That... So, a little bit of history about myself, I guess. But I kind of got started as a concept artist. Not professionally, right? But that's why I wanted to get into art. Because I wanted to do, like, concept arts. And I was, like, drawing and, like, a whole bunch of stuff. I still have my old sketchbooks here, actually. Should I... Wait, where are they? Where are they? Oh, there you are. Oh, God. But yeah, I did like a bunch of like drawings and like, oh my God, this sketchbook is falling apart. This is all from like more than 10 years ago now. And then once I kind of discovered, so I got like a bunch of these sketches of like random stuff that we had to do for school. This is all like uni stuff as well. Drawing in perspective. Then I would draw stuff like this. And I can timestamp some of like the paintings or like some of the drawings that I did, because this was literally when I was in hospital to get my appendix removed. And I had 2 weeks in the hospital that I drew this. But no, I was gonna say, like, I kind of started out like trying to become like a concept artist, but like my entire friend group consisted about people that were not interested in like anything artistically, right? So I basically latched onto the first person that did anything kind of like relevant to concept art, which was like really, it was like a game changer for me, because I was like, oh my God, he's doing the stuff that I want to do. This is awesome. And then I discovered 3D, I discovered environment art, and then it kind of took like a detour from everything. But yeah, I can totally get that you want to be surrounded by the people that have the same passion and ambitions as you. So yeah, it's all lovely to be surrounded by fellow artists. Jay's making the first C++ Unreal Engine plugin this week, which has felt nice. Oh shit, that's awesome, Jay. What are you making then? And Justin got through the first interview this week, was really nervous. How did you feel about going through the first interview? Obviously nervous, but did you feel good about it? Do you think you did well? And let's see. Jose is saying, I went back to learning about rendering and making cinematics. I've been working on that. And I finished a new free Substance Designer course from the Adobe channel. Oh, do they have like a new course? I've not seen that yet, I think. That would be cool to check out. It's been a while since I've done any designer stuff myself, though. I am getting like the personal itch again, like the personal art itch, where I have an idea of what I want to make, or like the way that I'm going to make things. But I need to hunker down and focus on the course first before we get into that. But I'm excited about it though. I kind of am stoking the fire of just like creativity, you know? Hawk is asking, as an environment artist, are pre-made assets... Oh, this is a good reminder, by the way. If you have any questions about environment art, about getting into the games industry, about anything like that, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll talk about it during the session, which we'll dive right into in just a little bit. So thank you for asking the question, Hawk. As an environment artist, pre-made assets is good to use or not? It is good. It just depends on if we're really going to simplify this. You don't want to replace the focal point of the scene. So the most important thing in your scene should be done by yourself, and then the rest of it you can potentially replace with pre-made assets, right? So it's good. It's good to use them, but you kind of don't want to use them in a way where they invalidate the stuff that you did. That's the way that I would look at it. Hey, see ya, King Tim. Hell yeah. It's called Designer First Steps, and it's really nice to learn the basics on how you start with the high channels and AO and how to use mass. Oh, that's awesome. That is good, because I feel like sometimes that's like the biggest thing for people, you know, like just getting into substance. From 3 months ago. Yeah, shows how up to date I am. Hello, Shanzivan. Jay is saying wanted to make some sort of tools for the new mesh paint stuff. So I made a tool to copy the textures made in Painter into the mesh paint texture. So you can have a set of bases to work from to paint quick. Okay, that's cool. And Justin said that he thinks he did okay, which is good. If you have that feeling that you think you did okay, that's good. I learned a lot more about the role than I was expecting. Got me more interested and excited. Oh, okay. That's nice. I would say I have no insight into this whatsoever, right? But how would I approach this? It's good to be excited, but don't get carried away if it doesn't happen, if you know what I mean. I'm just trying to protect you. I also don't want to demoralize you, right? It's a balance, but I think it is great that you think it went okay, though. That's honestly like really, really good. So that's a good sign. Oh, Andrea, you use it for foliage assets. Yeah. Yeah, like the way that I kind of see using additional assets is if there is a thing that you don't have an interest in doing yourself, that might be a good way to replace it. Obviously, there needs to be a balance somewhere, right? Because let's say you want to be a level artist and you don't even want to make props. Yeah, you're not going to get hired, you know? Like, there needs to be a balance somewhere. Be cool. Oh, it's so lovely to talk to you all again. This is gonna sound so silly. I'm trying this like new drink. I don't have it here with me now. It's a different one. But I'm trying this drink to like get hydrated before the streams and like when I'm talking a lot. And I feel like it's really, really helpful. It's like a combination of like electrolytes and caffeine and all that kind of stuff. And I feel good. It's like a nice pick-me-up to get back into the swing of things. Anyway, let's move stuff aside. Let's get into some feedback, shall we? So let me switch over here. And then we'll get into the swing of things. We have a decent amount of people today, so I probably will not be jumping into the chat so that I can kind of keep the speed a little bit up and, yeah, get through this thing. Or like, yeah, kind of curate the feedback a little bit more, right? Celsius? That's what it sort of reminds me of. It's called something different. Like, I don't know, some like weird little brand. I don't even know the name of it. I think it's the best way to know how you did in an interview would be how far you went off topic. Yeah, potentially. I'm trying to think. That Celsius stuff is dangerous. I don't even know what that Celsius stuff is, so I might need to look this up then. Also, I don't drink it all the time, so that's also a good thing. But yeah, I need to find a better mix between like coffee and just anything else. I need to just drink more water, but hey. I'm trying to think, Jay. Because honestly, in my interview with Ubisoft, I felt like we were like really on point. And I think I brought this up before. I think I just really screwed up with the last person that I had an interview with. He was the... Shit, what was he back then? I think he might have been content director or something like that. So, yeah. pretty high up, right? And the whole day was really fun. Honestly, like it was like a really fun interview, and I had a lot of fun talking to the people, and it was like really laid back. And then I got to this person, and I just continued talking to them, right? Like the way that I was talking the entire day, and I tried to make like a joke. Nothing. Dead silence. Oh my god. I thought I fucked up so bad. Sorry for the bad language here, but oh my god. Fear sank into my boots and I was like, oh no, I had such a lovely day and now I screw it up last minute. What the hell am I doing? It just turns out that he kind of is like a little bit strict, you know? Definitely drink more water. Yes, I got my water here. I just need to drink it more consistently. I finished this one today, so I've been a good boy, you know? But thanks for the tip though. Because I have this one, which I need to use more often because it's been a while. But then also my lovely girlfriend prepares like these ones for me to prepare me for the stream as well, so she's lovely. Okay. Let's see, Justin is saying this was my first interview relating to environment art. Not forgetting that the outcome may not turn out as the way that you want. Yeah, but it's also good. I don't want it to like demoralize you, right? Like if you had a good time and you learned from the interview itself, that's like an experience that's worth it by itself, right? And then anything you get on top of it is just a freaking bonus. So I wish you the best of luck, Justin. And let's have a look. Let's dive into some feedback then, shall we? So the first one that we have on the list for today is Moonlight. What is Moonlight? I had you in this list for sure. What? Oh. Dang it, there's a little tab here. There we go. There we go. W girlfriend, exactly. Exactly. Let's have a look, Moonlight. So just a reminder for people that joined, feel free to ask any questions in the chat and we'll kind of like weave them into things. So I'm a senior environment artist myself. I have like close to a decade now of experience. So if you want to ask anything about working in games, working in environment art, all that kind of stuff, feel free to ask and we'll chat about it. Apart from any NDA stuff. That's off the table. I mean, you can ask the question. I'm just going to ignore it. The standard way of dealing with NDA. Anyway, Moonlight. Let's have a look. So 2 questions. Thank you for putting up like the nice symbols and making it really obvious. Is it interesting to use an HDRI for an interior environment to create a sunset light? I don't think so. Because with an interior light, you're gonna get like a lot of reflections from like the interior space itself. So I don't think you necessarily need to have an HDRI for the interior. I think where it could help is if you have like a lot of glass surfaces, then that could be helpful to kind of like help you with the reflections of it. But otherwise, I mean, I'll make it even more broad, right? So try it out. If it looks better, keep it. That's what it comes down to, right? And you can apply that to like so many different things. It's not necessary to have like a HDRI image for an interior though. And what do you think of the lighting so far? So it's mostly this one, right? Because you have like a bunch of different ones, but this is the last one. This is the latest one, right? So we're gonna ignore this guy. And then we're just gonna look at this. So the lighting looks good. The way that I would approach lighting is the same way that we approach environments, right? So that means that we do like blockout lighting, and we just keep it in this stage until we start iterating on our assets, right? The reason why that is important, especially now with Lumen, is because Lumen will use the base colors of the surfaces that you put into your scene to actually bounce your global illumination and all that stuff around. So that means that I wouldn't try to tweak your lighting as early as you can, but just get a block out in and then iterate further down the line. The main thing that I'll bring up here though is, let's see. Let's see, let me grab my different brush. The main thing that I'll bring up here is that your lighting needs to be in support of the focal point, right? So let's see here. Let me see. I did some changes to my brush, I think. Flow, hardness. Oh, there it is. Opacity. Let's crank that up. So, sorry about that. But what you want to do with your lighting is you want to support your focal point. So for a scene like this, if let's say this is going to be your focal point, right? Currently, the intensity of these lights, they attract more attention to them compared to the light in the foreground, right? So that is something that we want to fix at this early stage, because if you want to have the attention here, that's where we need to kind of create some attention grabbing stuff, right? So always think about like, how does my lighting support my focal point? That's going to be really important. But yeah, but that's where iteration comes in, right? So keep iterating and you're going to be in a good position. And for the front of this tea room, I like to use a gaudy style facade with stained glass windows that will determine the light atmospherics. I mean, honestly, you're talking about this, right? I'll show it on the screen. You are currently talking about doing something like this as the foreground element. I would say that that's completely not important to the environment that we're currently looking at. So focus on building this out, making it as good as possible, and then worry about like the lights. Because even what you can do, right? What you can do with, if you want to get like that stained glass look and you want to have those like lights falling into your scene, which you have to be careful with because it introduces a lot of like color chaos, which can be like really distracting. But apart from that, that is something that you don't even need to make like a beautiful window. You can literally just grab like a plane and slap a texture on it and have it behind the camera because no one's ever going to see it anyway. So at that stage, we're talking about like maybe like half an hour job or something, right? So that could be like really quick to test. And if it works or not, we can get rid of it again. So I would not even worry about it at this point. But yeah, that's about it, Guillaume. I would say keep up the good work. Keep pushing yourself. Just as a side note, I like that you're taking steps on actively trying to reduce the environment. That is really good, right? I mean, we talked about this a lot before, but whenever you notice like, ooh, I'm overscoping, downsize, right? Because now is the time to do that. You don't want to be doing like a bunch of stuff and then, yeah, have to do it. So yeah, that's good. It is normal though. And yeah, it's good that you're realizing it. So keep that up. Cool. Thank you, Guillaume. Let's switch on over to the next person, which is Thomas L. So where's Thomas in the list? There we go. Thomas is working on this fantasy moon temple. And the questions for me are, so for the columns, I was wondering what technique would be the most appropriate. A quick test with like edge decals, and it seems like a good strategy, but there are so many edges due to the stepped seams that the whole environment is going to be covered in decals. I tried doing it with a trim sheet, but I couldn't find a good way to implement it. Yeah, I mean, with a trim sheet, you're going to have to do like a lot of finessing with like your normals and making sure that the values are absolutely 100% correct to get like that nice curve there, or like that nice edge. So I would say if the edge decals are already working, like keep using the edge decals. And what that is referring to is, so like in here, for people that don't know what edge decals are, you kind of have a little section here that is like a separate mesh that kind of hovers on top of like the base mesh. That causes that edge to kind of look like that. So you basically have a trim sheet or like a decal sheet with a bunch of these like just messy edges on them. And then you can use those as like individual strips to add onto the corners. I think that's a good technique, honestly. I would 100% go for that one. Because if your concern is about the amount of edges that you have in your scene, I think the concern there is more about like the decal count, right? And like the performance cost that you will have to pay. But the real performance cost with decals comes from the amount of them that you layer on top of each other, right? Because the GPU, in a very simplistic way, I'm not a tech artist, it has to render the pixel of the decal and the pixel behind it. So it's basically, yeah, that's the performance cost that we pay, right? But with every layer, it becomes like an exponential issue. So yeah, if you're not layering too many decals on top of each other, then it's fine. So yeah, for the first question is use your edge decals. That's a good technique to use here. Very valid. And then for the second question, so for the lighting, I'm thinking that lighting will mostly come from the candles and the lanterns. If we assume that each lantern and each cluster of candles has a point light, would that be too taxing? I would honestly not worry about that. Like, I would, from an artistic perspective, I would make it look good first. And then if you really notice like a slowdown, then look into like how you make it like more performant, right? Because from like a production perspective, it's good to have a little bit of knowledge about this stuff, but you are not going to be the person that has to do any of the performance benchmarking or anything like that, right? Where as artists, we are trying to achieve like the best visual quality. And then if that quality is really necessary to the game, then we look at some cool techniques that we can do to reduce like the performance impact of that visual quality, right? Usually it's a collaboration between us environment artists and then also tech artists, right? So we get together and find like clever solutions. But I would focus on the art first and make it just look cool. Because even with what you could do to kind of save some performance is have like 1 point light per cluster. And that's it. Right? And that's not going to be an issue at all. So 1 point light per cluster. That's going to be more than enough for here. And then, yeah, there's no concerns here whatsoever. Yeah, even with the inclusion of like, I don't know, new techniques like mega lights and all that kind of stuff, you can have like way more lights in your scene now than ever. So yeah, focus on making it look freaking cool and the visual quality of it and then do performance if necessary, right? But I will say performance, as an artist especially, and this is somewhat controversial for potential tech artists that are looking, but it's visuals over performance. Because, yeah, as artists, we are in charge of the visuals, right? We are not necessarily in charge of the performance. So that's where we want to focus our attention. Cool. But yeah, very cool looking scene though. I like the modeling of it already. Some cool stuff going on. And there's also beauty about like being able to reuse a bunch of stuff here as well, especially with edge decals on top to give you that flexibility. The scene is going to look really cool. So yeah, cool little scene, Thomas. Looking forward to the next update. Yeah, so you were asking, sorry, to cap this off, like, is there a creative solution? Because you're already doing like a singular point light for your candles. I would honestly just do that. Got it. Perfect. That's what I needed. Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Tom. Next one up is Sergiu. Let me see. That is a U in the list. Cool. I don't think we've talked about your work before. So first of all, welcome. It's good to see you here. Or maybe I'm just completely missing the ball, but I don't think I've seen you here before. Oh, you even say it in the post. Oh my God, maybe I should read first, you know? Maybe that helps. So this is the first time posting in Whip. And my actually first environment. I'm just replicating a scene by following a course. That's good. That's good. You kind of want to set the bar low in the beginning because there's so many hurdles, right, that you have to overcome. That yeah, even a scene like this at this scope could potentially be an issue if it wasn't for like the reusability of it. Joel, hey buddy, how's it going? Big fan. Oh my God. First time here, yes. Yeah, that's awesome, Sergiu. Yeah, same for Joel as well. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. But let's see. So some key elements that I would love to hear some feedback about. First of all, thank you so much for like making these like questions so clear to read. So the bigger structural parts of the scene, such as the columns, the bigger trims, and even the big stones that form the walls of the temple, would it help if I make them as nanite assets rather than low poly models that share the textures in order to make them more visually pleasing and then reduce the repetition? So I have, my opinion on nanite is that as an artist trying to get into the games industry, right, if that is your goal, I would not focus on nanite. Because nanite is a technology that is specific to Unreal Engine, right? So if you then build your entire portfolio up with that, like nanite assets, then a company that hires you needs to have access to that technology. But like the majority of projects that I worked on were all like in-house tech anyway. And I know that like the data on that is changing, right? But I, for now, wouldn't recommend using nanite. Not yet, at least. Because you kind of want to build up like your base skills and showcase that you can do it with like traditional low poly. And then potentially in your next project, you can infuse it with a little bit of nanite or something, right? But I wouldn't do that from the get-go. Because even you bring up, in order to make them more visually pleasing, right? Which means that there is that you think that there's a difference between low poly meshes and nanite. I think it comes down to the workflow that you use, really, because you can have visually unique meshes by using tidables, by employing something like vertex paint or a second UV set, or I don't know, just texture variations, right? Kind of depends on like your technical understanding of the pipeline. But you can create like a lot of flexibility using the traditional methods. So to make things more visually pleasing and more different from each other, I would just go with vertex painting, second UVs, decals, all that kind of stuff. Potentially try this one last because it's a little bit more involved. I would honestly go for vertex painting or decals in this case, because they are so simple to use and so flexible, whereas this one is more for specific use cases and probably not going to be that helpful here necessarily. So that's the way that I would approach it. The second question is, other than adding imperfections, especially on the stairs, adding bits of destroyed columns and stones, would there be any other fitting details to make the scene more interesting? It feels empty right now. So I think you started kind of doing some sketches here, because it does feel empty right now, and that is because what is the story? Like, what's happening here, right? What is happening? Who is here? When is it? Like, what happened here before? Like, we have the cool location, but we don't know what's gonna happen in this cool location, you know? So just think about the story and what is happening here. For example, it can be something really simple, right? Like if you have like a light, for example, where is that light coming from? Why is that light there? Is it a modern light? Is it like a traditional light? Because you could do it very simply by just having this gateway illuminated, right? And then you could have the indication of like, oh, there's people inside, but you don't really know what's happening. But yeah, even if you then, I don't know, have like, you have like some urns, you have like a bunch of urns over here, you kind of have like these staircases like all broken up and like nicely varied, right? And then maybe some additional urns here, maybe some smaller ones. The scene is gonna fill up like really quickly. And then potentially you can do something where, if this is a pool, is this like a baiting pool? I'm assuming so. So then you could have like little pieces of fabric, right? Like just little pieces of cloth, like on the staircase to like indicate that someone is baiting here, right? So just lead into like what this space is and what the story the space is telling, right? So if this is like a bathhouse, just lead into that, right? But yeah, that's why I wanna put like an emphasis on the story. Like, what is it wasn't meant as a pool, but that's a good idea. So here's the issue with that idea though, right? If you want to make a pool and you want to make it feel like, oh, there's actually people living in it and they're using the pool actively, then having it fully destroyed doesn't make sense because they're still using it, right? So then it's like, okay, how can I make it destroyed looking, but it's still in use? So maybe it's not the original people that built the place that are using it, but maybe it's like this, it's the dominant people that live here are no longer Romans, right? But it's like the next civilization that took over, and they kind of tried to make it their own thing, but they inherited like this broken thing, right? So looking at history and maybe looking at like how the Saxons like took over some of the Roman bathhouses and all that kind of stuff and what happened to it. There's some cool stuff that you can do with it. But you can see that like all these individual things, they need to tie together to form one cohesive picture, right? So even the racing chariot, like what is its purpose, right? Like really think about that. Because it can be something from like logic, right? It's like, how did it get here? Like, why is it there? And also like, again, if the architecture is broken, then why is there still like a transport, like a racing chariot that is from that age, but everything else is in disrepair, right? So think about it from like a consistency level, where you kind of have to think about like how to make things consistent. So hello, can I please draw? What happened here again? What? Oh, there we go. There was just like giant lag. Okay, cool. Cool. So, number 2. It was focus on the consistency, right? Like, how do you tell like a consistent theme throughout the whole thing? So a consistent theme and a consistent story, right? And I use story to basically lay out like the backbone of every environment. So I'll think about like, okay, it's destroyed. Why is it destroyed? Who destroyed it? Who is living here how? And then you can kind of build up those layers, right? Let's see, next question. So, yeah, and just to really put a cap on that, like I use that story to like basically give me like a bunch of ideas on what I need to make as well, right? Because once we know who lives there, how it happened, then we can start talking about like, oh, okay, this got destroyed recently, so there's still like a bunch of rubble on the floor. That kind of stuff, right? Would it make sense to use foliage here other than the small grass in the middle of the temple, such as ivy? Yeah, sure. It goes back to the next, to the previous thing, right? Like if it's abandoned, use foliage. If it's not abandoned, then you probably don't want to have foliage, right? But the consistency between all those thematics, they kind of need to be in line. Is it worth spending a lot of time on making highly detailed trim sheets for this scene, since most of them won't be very closely aligned to the camera? So you would still want to show off the trim sheets in the end, right? Because once you do a portfolio piece, you kind of want to showcase like all the things that you did as well. So having something highly detailed is going to put like extra points on your portfolio presentation. So it might be good to invest a little bit of extra time making that stuff look really good, so that you can then use it as your presentation in the end as well. Because yeah, that is definitely going to be helpful. So number 3 was basically the foliage bit, right? So see number 2, basically. Because that depends on story. And then number 4 is if you basically invest like a bunch of time now, that's going to give you a better portfolio. Right? And you can use that material to give you like a better portfolio. Cool. Yeah. But that's pretty much it for the questions. So I hope that was helpful. I think just to recap, the most important thing here is really thinking about, okay, why is it destroyed? Like, who still uses this if it's used? And then using that as a foundational layer to then be like, okay, so if it's still in use, like, why is it used, right? And then build like assets on top of that and all that kind of stuff. So use your storytelling as like your fundamental layer to then build up everything on top of it. But yeah. Thank you so much for jumping in here, Sergio. I really appreciate it. And also, yeah, welcome to the community. Lovely to have you. It's an ambitious project, which I do like, but I'm a big fan of the topic that you've chosen because it is highly reusable and you can get this stuff looking really good with minimal amount of textures and materials and all that kind of stuff. You can basically, it has modularity like written all over it. So a good choice. Looking forward to seeing how it's all going to come together. And thank you so much for sharing again. Kill. Let's jump on over to Swan. And I'll drink my forbidden juice here over in a second. Thank you kindly. No worries. No worries. Thank you so much for joining as well. All right. So, Swan is working on the fishy. Danny coming in with the freaking amazing feedback last week. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for doing that, Danny. What's the forbidden juice? I'm not going to tell. It's forbidden juice. It's unlabeled forbidden juice. Let's see. Swan is saying, I try my best to implement the subsurface with transparency, breaking up the skin to have more contrast while still feeling wet and slimy. The first two shots are with the Fresnel and the last one are without. I think I flipped them around. So this one is with the Fresnel and this one is without. What I did though is one thing to compare here is the changes that actually got made, right? So this is the change that we got. Wet butt slimy. Yeah. I got it. So this is a change that happened. And I think, honestly, with the Fresnel and the subsurface scattering, it does make a difference. Right? You can kind of see, like, the Fresnel values, like, coming into, like, the individual scales, which is quite nice. And you get, like, this slight little highlighting effect. But, honestly, I didn't even notice that in the beginning. So I think it's worth it. I think it is. So that is a job well done. But yeah, it's really hard to spot. And I think, yeah, especially in this screenshot. Let's do an overlay here as well. Is that the same thing? Oh yeah. Yeah, you kind of get some stuff going. Yeah, it's so tricky to make this look really good. But let's see. I haven't done anything to the woodblock or the cleaver yet, but I would like to get some feedback on the texturing with the fish. I think it's good. Yeah, I think the main question is, like, come on. Where's those juicy lips? Come on. I want to see the red lipstick, you know? Oh, it was so... I had so much fun last time. Giving the fish, like, red lips. Oh, that juicy... Mwah. Beautiful. In all seriousness, though, there is, like, a little bit of a lip here. I think you can exaggerate the effect, though. Where you can really play up the effect of how much is happening there. And this is, you don't have to retexture, you know, you're just pulling the geometry just a little bit more. So that especially on the silhouette, it still feels like we're almost doing like a singular shape, right? But we kind of want to exaggerate the effect a little bit. just so that we get that silhouette to look like more interesting than just it being like tied together somehow, right? Maybe it's just me, but I do think that the eyes need a little bit more depth, as in the eyes look a little bit too shallow. Potentially, because usually like the eyes are just like, yeah, just really round, right? They really stick out. So potentially, especially here. But honestly, it's been a while since I looked at a fish up close, you know? So I'm gonna leave that to Swan to really do a deep dive on like fish eyes, right? Go to your local fish market and explore some different kinds of fish and like how bulbous their eyes are to get to get as close to reality. But yeah, it is looking nice though. I think one thing that you could do, and this again is like a really quick win, is let's see, how do we do this? Like basically go in with a soft selection brush and have the fish like flop sideways a little bit more, so that we would kind of have like the fish head kind of be like rotated just like a little bit more to the side, so that we get this like kind of curve of just the fish just like sitting against the other fish and kind of just like leading into it, right? Because now it still almost feels like you just put it down and it's still like almost really straight. So just having that there, that can have a good effect. So more lean. And also another thing that I wanted to bring up, especially around the fin, I do not know if that is like a separate thing. Swan, is like the fin, is that like a... let me see. I think it is, because I saw some geo last time. So if this is like a separate thing... Hey, Zayad, welcome back. Yeah, if that is separate, what I'm expecting is to see more shadow between it. So what that could be, again, is like you go in with a soft selection brush, like, well, soft selection, and you just move the geometry, right? And you just pull this section out a little bit more so that we get like a slight curve here. And then introduce like more shadow here with screen space ambient occlusion, which is something that you have to re-enable in Unreal. I can't remember like the exact like console commands for it. But if you look up SSAO in Unreal Engine, you can get that back, and that's going to give you that like nice contact shadow between those two surfaces to kind of add like a little bit of depth to it. Because right now what is happening is that it feels, I don't even know if it's like fully against his body or separated, because there's no shadow information. So we kind of want to reintroduce that a little bit. It is connected, but I can definitely shift it and look into that. Will I need to rebake it though? Okay, so okay, in that case, we'll just have to do it in the texture, which means, okay, so in that case, what we'll need to do is we can't use screen space ambient occlusion. What we'll have to do is we'll have to re-enable material ambient occlusion. So in Unreal Engine, because of Lumen, they basically disabled the ability to have like an AO map in your material, right? But you can re-enable that in your project settings and then add like an AO map back into it and create like little patches of shadow in there. So that can be useful to get some like additional shadow information in like between the gills, underneath the fins, and like around the eyes and in the mouth as well. So You would probably need to like re-enable this. So in that case, look into that and then just do it through texture. Because yeah, screen space AO would actually mean that we have to physically separate the geometry. Whereas with material AO, we can kind of fake it in the material. So that's probably the preferred way to go. Cool. Thanks, Swan. Best of luck with that. Making some good progress though. Like I said it before, fish is really hard to make really look good. And I'll be honest, at this point, this has never been my strong suit either. So it just comes down to looking at the reference, right? And seeing how we can push like it even further if you can. Because yeah, at this point, I would need to like take my proper time and actually look at the references and like really try to nail down what needs to be improved, right? So like feedback on a whim like this is always a bit more, it's trickier. Oh my god, why is it lag? Oh. Just my mouse? Okay. Well, we're just gonna ignore that then. Cool. So let's see. But yeah, thank you so much for pitching in there, Andrea. That's really appreciated. You're hacked, it's okay. Oh, thanks. Thanks for making sure that I'm fine. The fishmongers get weirded out when I stare into the eyes, like for hours. No, Connor, you're doing it wrong. Like, you, the thing that you need to do there is you need to switch between the two, right? So you stare for an hour at the fish, and then you stare for an hour at the fishmonger. And then as soon as he leaves, you can stare back at the fish again, right? So that's fine. Just keep staring, and you'll win. Sorry for skipping your question, Jose. So what if you work for an indie studio? Would they expect you to be able to optimize, or will they have a specialist for that as well? I think this was in reference to the nanite, right? That's kind of difficult to answer. Oh no, I think you were talking about like the actual portfolio device that I was giving, right? In that case, yeah, you would need to like optimize a little bit as well. But honestly, when it comes to lighting, that stuff that we were talking about specifically, that's pretty easy to do. Like, you just like remove point lights and then kind of turn off like shadow casting and all that kind of stuff and reduce the radius until it kind of works. But if we're talking about like broadly, if you're working for an indie studio, it's highly likely that you'll be doing like a lot of optimization and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah. Didn't expect that. Yeah, just stare everyone in the eyeball. Solves all your problems. Let's see. Yeah, ask for a sample and return it. Yeah, just give them back their fish. Just like run off with it for an hour and then just give them back their fish. It's like, thanks. No, I swear, I'll bring it back. Trust me. Okay, let's see. Who's next? Justin is next. Justin made some really cool rubble pieces and then also did some more work on the environment as well. I forgot like the most important shot in here, so give me just a second. We're gonna yeet this guy and then we're gonna get this in instead. It was actually perfect. Cool. Okay. So, really, I mean, I'm loving what I'm seeing, right? In terms of like the actual rubble pieces, because now we're actually getting like a hierarchy of shapes going. I think just in terms of getting those smaller detailed shapes in there has helped a lot. So that by itself is already like a massive win. I think what we need to do now though, is we need to make sure that we use it like a little bit more deliberately. And also, like, be a bit more deliberate where we scatter decals or textures or anything like that, because there is still a lot of noise. Even though this looks way, way, way better than where we were like a couple of weeks ago, right? So making massive strides, doing a really good job. You just have to keep at it, right? And think about what we said, right? So there's some beautiful cases of you have a big shape and then you have like these smaller shapes, right? That is starting to work like really nice. However, where you have cases like this, right, where ideally you want to focus on the broken pottery, if you then start adding like a bunch of this stuff with it, it's going to make the pottery disappear because there's just so much noise to look into, right? So sometimes it's a benefit to be a bit more deliberate where you put the noise. And I'm talking not only about like the geometry, but also textures, all that kind of stuff too. So for example, this works really well, right? Where you got like your staircase and then you have like a rubble pile next to it, which works nice. And then you kind of have like this area that is like a little bit more clean, right? That works really well. But there are certain cases where it is just really difficult to look at something like this and then be able to discern like what we're really looking at, right? So those areas can be improved like a little bit. Let's see. What were some of the questions though? So, are the routes more readable for the audience? Okay, let's start with that. I think the main route that you want to highlight is this one, right? Which works really well. You kind of have like this route going down, taking you up there. Cool. That is awesome. I think that route works really well. And you kind of guide it through the whole thing like really nicely. I think we're still dealing with like a lot of really dark space over here, which can be brightened up just a little bit. Because for example, the balance in the overall image works really well over here, right? Because we're not dealing with like super dark areas, but these areas are still like really readable, right? Where in this area, I don't even know what I'm looking at. It's again, I know from like looking at this that there's like a lot of stuff happening, but all of the detail kind of gets lost because it's just like one solid mass of black, right? So be careful with various areas that are too dark, and yeah, try to balance it more like that, because this one from like a color correction kind of scheme looks really nice. So it's correct that the route needed to be clean, though I wanted the bottom half to still be messy just to indicate it has less interaction. Yeah, but like you can still like interact, or you can still, if we're talking about this, right? You can still make it feel like this one didn't get interacted with by using bigger shapes, right? Or being a little bit more intentional with the texture that you use. Because now if we look at this, right? I mean, we're zoomed in because I want to get rid of all the context, but I don't know what we're looking at. So it should still feel like a path that is just not used, right? So what we can do there potentially is, if you want to have like the main path here, and then you can just have like a couple of broken like tiles or stones, right? And then just cluster them up again with just like a couple of smaller pieces. And that can still work if we then also do the same thing, not only with the shapes, but also get rid of the green as well. I think the green is causing a lot of distraction for me right now. It's a combination of the green and just the amount of stuff that is like happening here, which is like really hard to read. So it's not that we're trying to get rid of the stuff or like the assets or the necessarily Trying to think, not necessarily the placement of it. I mean, it comes down to the placement, but we need to be more deliberate with how we use stuff. Let's see. So I added another lighting on the third image next to the tilted column to show more the destroyed architecture, but I'm debating in my head if I should be adding more. Wait, so that's this one. Let's see. I feel like having some parts in the dark adds more to the place being lost and obscured. Yeah, but it's in terms of like lighting, this one is really nice because it is dark and it is obscured, right? Like we look at this and it's like, oh, you kind of have some spots that are still lit up, but it is still in a cave. So yeah, I mean, as long as we keep sort of like this value range where like all the yeah, like we said before, right? Like this is basically still readable. That's what we want. If we can retain the readability of it, while maybe getting rid of like this light over here, right? Let's say if we want to get rid of this light and that light, as long as, or maybe just dim this light, dim it down and just remove this one. If we do that, but we keep the readability of the space, so like we keep sort of the same value structure, you're in a really good spot. However, if it affects the readability of the space, then we're losing something, right? So keep focused on that. Cool. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Cool stuff, Justin. I mean, this one is, yeah, this one is in a really good spot right now. Like I really like the way that the colors are balanced and just like the blues versus the oranges, like they work really well and everything is still like really readable as well. So I think in terms of like color correction, that image is in the best position from all of them. So that would be something good to try and like balance the rest of it towards, right? Connor is saying, I mean, it's a joke, but actually, like real world ref might be better. Pictures are inaccurate with reflective surfaces like that. Oh, pardon me. I agree. Like, I will go even one step further. For anything, if you can get real life ref, get it. Because you're going to be missing out on a bunch of things that you didn't even realize in the pictures, right? Because sometimes it comes down to the nitty gritty. Like, let's say you hold it at a specific angle and you see like the roughness variation really nicely, right? So yeah, for everything, get real world feedback. Andrea saying just needs a Lara Croft approaching the bell. Yeah. As long as you don't scare me with like a 64 polygon like T-Rex, then it's all good. It's probably one of my like early childhood memories is playing like the early Tomb Raider games with my mom. And there was a section where you have to do like a specific jump. And I'm not sure. I think you're meant to miss it, but we never realized it. So we always fucked up. We fell down a pit and then you get chased by like a giant T-Rex. Oh my god, I was so scared. Oh. Because that thing looked lifelike. At that point, that was like peak, you know? Peak graphics. Fuck's sake. Oh. It was so funny though. Let me see if I can find it. There must be an image. Come on, show it to me. Lost Islands? No. It didn't look that good. Let me see. Come on, there must be an image of this. The image itself is like 200 pixels. Oh my god. This is ridiculous, but this is like, you know, this is true to the times. This is what I was scared of. I had nightmares of this. Oh my god, so silly. Let's see. Let me see if I can find like a better picture. Come on, there must be a better one. I don't want to see upscaled stuff though. Oh my god. I mean, just look at this guy. Is it with you in the room? Oh my god, Andrea, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. I usually stay up late and I have to go, like before I go to sleep, I'll go to the bathroom and then have to walk in the dark, you know? Come on. I don't want to imagine this behind me as I'm crossing into the other room. This was amazing back then? Oh yeah, it was. It was freaking amazing. I was scared, genuinely. Oh, and then also doing like the locking up like your butler in the freezer and all that kind of stuff. There were so many gimmicks at that point. Smash. Oh my god, how dare you? How dare you? Cool. Enough talking about like being freaking afraid of dinosaurs. Let's go back to some feedback. So, who's next? We got Ethernet is better. Ethernet is better. I implemented a new camera angle. What do you think about it? So this is a new one. It's up to you. I think honestly it's a little bit unnecessary. I honestly prefer this one like way more. Just because we have more contrast, like the composition works really well. And it's kind of like the same as this one. It's kind of going for the same similar vibes. So in my personal opinion, I don't think you need an additional one because it's not necessarily capturing like any new data. So no need for a new camera. And then number 2, the other question is, I thought it would be interesting to add a red light in the house to signify that something dangerous is destroying everything. Does this help me tell a story or does it not make sense? I honestly think that by not doing the red light inside of it, your scene has a better impact just signifying like the natural decay of things. Rather than trying to make it feel like, ooh, something spooky or creepy is inside, but it's like, but the red light just like, I don't know, it doesn't do anything, right? If we could maybe extend that a little bit by adding like assets or anything like that to it, but I think it's quite unnecessary, to be honest. But I do like your idea though, where you can kind of signify something not necessarily in relationship with the red light, but it would be cool to just have maybe like an old sign here. Just saying like keep out or something like that. And then you've got like another sign here that is like a little bit hidden and that says like survivors will be shot by trespassing or something like that. Some very typical like American signposting, right? Where you say like, hey, this is my yard, like you're trespassing, like get out of here or I'll shoot your ass, you know? Something like that, kind of play into that. Because then you're not really talking about like, ooh, there's a red light, but there could still be a guy in there potentially, or maybe something else, but kind of keeping it like a little bit more vague could be like more interesting. So potentially having like signs that are like partially overgrown could be a more interesting way of capturing what you want to capture with that. Potentially. I mean, it's up to you in the end, right? But yeah. I would definitely do something with the keep out signs that you were talking about. Because that is interesting. Because also what that does is it says something about the character that inhabited this place as well, right? So that is also what we always try to do. We try to like deepen like the connection to the person of that place, right? Oh, ogre warning signs. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then we'll add like, you know, like one of those like toilets in the back of here. Just like a Shrek Easter egg, you know? We'll hide it like in the thick forest, like in the fog in the back of it. Oh my god. But yeah, I think the keep out signs could be good. There's something to that. So yeah. I would definitely have a look at that, and you could almost make them like super hidden by like all the foliage and kind of have them like overgrown and like super swampy and barely readable. So it becomes this like very subtle like hint at like, hey, keep out, but like maybe there's something still happening or maybe not. And then you, if you want to go, because now if we look at the scene, it kind of hints towards like, oh, there's just like beautiful decay, right? Like we don't know if there's someone living there, but it doesn't feel like that hospitable or like that hostile yet. But then it kind of changes once we like open the door a little bit, right? You can maybe see like a little bit inside. Not that we have to do anything inside, but just that it's like black, right? Because then we're kind of like guiding you in, and we're setting up this thing of like, oh my god, what is in here, right? And if you have an open door that is like inviting you in, but we don't know what's behind the door. And it only has to be like a small little bit, right, that it's open. That's enough. And you can be very subtle with that storytelling, perhaps, where, I don't know, maybe like the door frame is like busted or like crooked or anything like that. If you want to take it. It depends on where you want to take it at that point. But yeah. I hope that was helpful. Ethernet is better. Thank you for posting your work again. Yeah. Good stuff though. I really like this scene, you know? I really do like this scene. Yeah. Cool stuff. It's almost implying someone is in there if the door is open. Yeah, that's the thing. Like you're kind of just like, you're trying to play on like our human emotions, right? Because like the door is like slightly open, so it's kind of like, it could be two things, right? But we're not sure. It's like, oh, it's inviting me in, or someone is in there now, but we don't know. And that like insecurity of like which one of the two it is, like that is really interesting from like a viewer perspective, especially if you're thinking about like a horror game, right? Because you're looking for like, I don't know, a key to unlock the gate or whatever, and you know that it's inside that house, but you don't want to go in there because yeah, just look at it and all the signs are saying keep out and all that kind of stuff, right? So cool. Internet's better. Thank you so much for sharing your work. Lovely to see your updates. Next one up is Mefal. Mefal is working on the presentation of things. As for feedback this week, how's the lighting looking now? I've added more details, fog and light into the scene. I like it. It's going in a really, really good direction. It's kind of making the whole thing like more presentable as well, and just like more interesting, just from like our perspective. And I also like that you chose like this very cyberpunky approach to like the traffic on the streets, right? It gets to a point where actually this approach might be really cool and could potentially, you could get rid of like a bunch of these smaller assets that I recommended you do last time, right? But I feel like this approach could actually be like really interesting to kind of go with. So you keep it more like high level, like long shot exposure where you just like keep your camera lens open for the longest time and you just like let the light come in, right? That's how you create like these streaks. Yeah, cool stuff. Do the road lights work for selling the streets, or are they too intense? I follow the yeah. So I think they're really good. Yeah. Nothing really to say on that. Additional questions that I forgot. Started working on the presentation. I was wondering what your thoughts are on these. So let's see. You kind of got like the presentation going from like, hey, this is how we're gonna do it. Think about how you're gonna present that information, because you're doing it as like a sequence like this now, but most of the stuff on ArtStation is horizontal, right? Or like landscape. So think about that implementation. Also think about like, maybe this is more interesting as like a video, right? Where you do like individual frames and you kind of run through the video. Maybe you do like a little bit of like, you do like a little bit of a voiceover on top of it. And then just transition, because you could have like the stuff that you've already made, you just like rotate that as you're presenting it. And then whenever you're done talking about one segment, you just have a transition into like the next segment, just to make it like more interesting, right? Yeah, cool. Candy Magic, thank you so much for subscribing. Yeah, cool stuff. I like what I'm seeing here. Yeah, I'm just, when it comes to the presentation ideas, right? I'm more keen to see like the full presentation of like the full blog, and then we can see like, oh, okay, like, because now a lot of context is kind of missing, right? And I'm seeing like the individual thing, but the sequence to it is also like really important as well. So I would say try that out, because yeah, I mean, I can have my opinions on like use better colors to like easier differentiate between, like, you got like the pink here and like a red here. The outline is maybe not that necessary, but I kind of see what you're trying to do. But all that stuff is just like very specific to like, I don't know, people's design choices as well, right? Like when it comes to stuff like this, I would rather keep it like rather simple. And then the way that I would do this myself is just like, hey, this rooftop is this color, that is this color, and then just use like white text. But then we're getting into the weeds of things, right? So yeah, cool. I would say, yeah, this one could be a video. Could do some really cool stuff with a video, because we want to really sell it, right? We want to really sell the whole thing. Yeah, cool stuff, Mefal. Thank you so much for the update. Lovely. Jordan is up next. Jordy. So let me double check here. That's the latest one. And this is an old one from a week ago. Just so that we have like all of them like laid out in sequence. So, if we have a look at this guy over here. We're probably going to be talking from like a color correction perspective a lot this time around. Where I feel like there's a lot of contrast happening. Right, there's like a lot of contrast and like saturation happening like around like the focal point, which it is helping in drawing our attention to it, but I feel like it's too much. So too much saturation. Saturation and contrast. And I might even be... So there's like a certain thing that I like about this one, and it's about how the fog ties the whole scene together. I don't necessarily want the fog to be as intense as it was here, but I like that we're getting like this transition in from the foreground into the background a little bit, right? Because we have like a little bit of fog happening here, and then we have like medium amount of fog happening here, and then we have like a high amount of fog in the back, right? So we kind of have this transition from like, oh, front of the building to the back. Whereas right now, we just have like this very intense front, and then we kind of have like something happening here, but it doesn't feel like a proper transition anymore. And it's missing that depth to the whole image. So that is probably what I would want to bring back from this image, is just that transition into the background. Whereas right now, yeah, it doesn't connect to the whole frame. It feels like it's supposed to be very snowy, but then there's no snow. Or there's no indication of like actual layering of snow. Let me actually see if we have some questions here though. We'd love some feedback for more polish. I want to have this wrapped up by the weekend. Still need to make some color correction adjustments. Yeah, I would say that that's like the biggest thing to focus on. What I would do, whenever there's color correction things happening, for me, what was really helpful is using a LUT. So an LUT, which is a colored lookup table, which means that it's basically a texture that you can drag into Photoshop, you do all of your adjustments, and those adjustments are going to be basically, they're going to be added into that texture, and you can take that texture and add it into Unreal, and it's going to translate your color correction that you did from Photoshop into Unreal, which is really nice. Because I feel that color correction in Unreal can oftentimes be like very overwhelming and like very specific in the way that you want to fine-tune things. So if you struggle with that, have a look into using like an LUT. Unreal Engine themselves have like a bunch of really good tutorials about this, so that would be really good to check out. But yeah, that would be like the main thing. So what would I do? I would personally lessen the contrast, bring back more depth fog. Try to get some more height fog in there as well, so that you're basically getting more of this stuff, but in general across like the whole image a little bit. I want to kind of have like a base layer, and then you can go in with like individual like local fog volumes and kind of dress it up, right? So lessen the contrast, add more depth fog and height fog, and then the saturation as well, especially on the house, because it feels like the colors on the house are so intense and like the lights are so intense that we need to like massage it and kind of like unify the whole image a bit more. It's like the main thing that I would say is like try to unify the image a bit more, which was happening here because we have the fog more as like it's like an overlay that happens over everything, right? Like everything kind of has like some blue tones into it. Again, it's really cool to see more of the distance, right? But it would also be fine if we do like a blend between these two. I don't actually know. Okay, we're gonna try something cheeky here. We are gonna try something cheeky. Ah, you changed the camera, dang it. Okay. Let's keep trying something sneaky. This might not work, but hey, we're gonna try it regardless. I think the camera angle changed as well. Dang it! I mean, we're getting pretty close. Me. Yeah, it's not as good as an illustration as I wanted it to be, but... yeah, I mean, even something like this, right, where we get rid of like some of the harshness and we try to blend the two things together a little bit more, that's already like a bit helpful, even though it's not a perfect illustration of it. But yeah, that would be my list that I would be looking into, Jordy. So yeah, I'll say good luck and have fun with that, mate. And keen to see you post it if you want to get it done for the weekend. So good luck, man. Looking forward to seeing it. Take your time with all the breakdowns and stuff too, right? Just as like a precaution. Just make sure that you spend your time on that. Make it look really good. Get it looking the best you can. Cool. Next one up to today is Devious Phoenix. So Devious Phoenix is working on the first environment. Oh, shit. A very ambitious first environment. Wouldn't mind getting some feedback on it now and getting some thoughts in. For the next one, for the next Whip Wednesday, I would say give me some stuff that you want feedback on, right? Because with anything generic, I mean, there's no boundaries on that, right? So I don't know what you're looking for. So getting more specific is always helpful. But I think you added some stuff later, so let's see. I'm also trying to figure out how to make the roof not look as flat. I don't think pump works since it's at a steep angle. I know that nanite tessellation is there. Oh, this is basically something that we answered already, right? But I'll share with people here again that the way that you can do this is the way that I did my medieval roofs as well, is you just make a tileable and then you use the height map of that tileable as displacement map inside of Blender, for example. And then you can use that to extrude it into actual geometry, and then you have like a roof that's made out of like actual geometry. So it's a pretty flexible workflow. It's really quick as well. So yeah, the only thing that you kind of need to do there is make sure that you have enough geometry to render it on, right? So my usual workflow with this is you need to get a height map. Right, so that's your prerequisite. That's what we're starting out with. And then we'll just do, so you have your mesh. We want to subdivide that. Subdivision modifier in Blender or Turbo Smooth or whatever in Max. Because that makes sure that we have enough geometry, right? So it's basically more geo. Cool. Once we have that geo, then we use like a displacement modifier, which is then actually gonna push that geometry to adapt to that height map that we use as the input. And then we just need to do like a little bit of cleanup, because otherwise like your mesh is going to be really dense, right? So usually then we'll add like a decimate to it, a decimate modifier. And all this stuff basically gives you like a clean result that is like really highly adaptable, because you can re-UV your mesh and it will change like the tileable, or it will change the scale or whatever. And it will still give you like a relatively clean output because you added that decimate at the end of it, right? That is probably how these people do it as well. So in here, it looks like there's actually some actual geo. Let's see, can't really make it out. Yeah, there's some geo there as well. Yeah, if I took like a higher res image, then we could actually have a look at it. But what you can do, right? So this is also another way, right? So maybe let's talk about that. So your first way is to use like a height map, right? The second way is to create like individual meshes. And then using like an array modifier or geonodes or Houdini or something like that to scatter these meshes onto a rooftop. So it's actually interesting now that I think about it. This is the way that I did it on my medieval project first, and this is the way that I did it afterwards. He can do it with geonodes. Yeah. That is true. I don't know if I have like any zoomed in images from so that I was doing. But that's the thing, right? Like in the beginning, you don't want to do geonodes because then you're putting so much of a burden on yourself. So I would, in the beginning, honestly, I would do it with an array modifier. I would just do an array for one row, an array for like a row that is offset, or maybe even have like, okay, so the way that I would do it is I would have, so if we're creating this roof, I would do something like this, right? This is my input mesh. And then I do like an array modifier. Make sure that these tiles align, right? And this tile aligns with that one as well. And then we can basically just create like the whole roof structure, right? And then do it in an array, because this is like 1,000 times easier if you want to start playing with geonodes, because I can guarantee you once you start playing with geonodes, you're gonna open a can of worms that is really hard to close back up, which is fun, but it's not gonna make you finish your environments quicker. Gotta head to bed. Thanks Tim for the stream. Thanks for being here, Andrea. Really appreciate it. Everyone is doing such a great job. Yeah, they really are. They really are. And I'll give you like a third bonus. He's going to hate himself. Yeah, potentially. I don't want people to go off like the technical cliff when just an array modifier is all you need, right? There's a third option as well, which is where POM comes into place, right? Because you're worried about like the angles, right? You can kind of see, I don't know if this is POM because we don't have the resolution here necessarily, but the way that you can do that, no, it's actually Geo probably because of the bottom row. But let's say you want to create like a roof like this. What you could do is do the interior as POM. So that's POM, and then the exterior as actual mesh. That's also another way of doing it. To make it the easiest and to make it like, let's see, most of this stuff is really flat though. I would, in this case, go for Pom. I would honestly go for like number 3. So Pom with some assets. Because your roof here is really clean. Clean as in it doesn't have a lot of variation. There's not like a lot of holes, all that kind of stuff. So you can just use Pom and just get away with just having like meshes on the silhouette. To keep it real simple. Cool. Thank you for sharing your work. Wait, maybe there's another question. Okay. I think that was it. Cool. Thank you, Devious Phoenix. Best of luck on the project. This is a great looking concept though. I really like this concept. So great stuff. And keep us all up to date. Swatch Fox is next. So the Black Fox, I didn't organize this yet. So getting a sneak peek behind my organizational skills. I think we have like a bunch of images here. So I'm only going to pick 6 because honestly, that's all we care about. Otherwise, there's too many images. Hey everyone, I would like to take part in this week's Whip Wednesday. I've made some subtle changes to the texture. I'm still working on the cassette, so never mind that. I'd like to know if the player looks finished. Yeah, look at all the cool details. It does look really nice. I do have to say, look at how juicy this looks. Yeah, it's looking really good to me. As I said before, for really in-depth texturing advice, we would need to really dive into like the textures and like the references and all that kind of stuff, right? So let's see if I can point out like a couple things. There are some areas where you can kind of see like the generator come in, right? Where you have like this really straight edge. I would honestly love to see more of a breakup. Especially, I'm talking about like this white little edge damage that you have. I would love to see more of a breakup in terms of just, it's fine to use it and then go in and like occasionally like add a couple of dots or like a couple of little bits with like bigger damage to kind of break it up, right? Because that is where the magic is going to come in. So like painting a bunch of like very specific damage, like in a very chaotic manner, is going to look really nice. And yeah, wherever something looks quite samey, right? Like just try to break it up a little bit more. Like nothing is going to be straight, really. In terms of like damage and all that kind of stuff too, right? Yeah. So that would be something that can be applied on like the whole thing as well. Hey, Mefal is late tonight. Oh, no, we just did you, Mefal. Zayad is coming in. Good night, guys, and thank you, Tim. Thank you for being here, Zayad. I appreciate you. So I hope you have a good evening as well. So yeah, those would be my 2 cents. It's not much, but hey. but I think you've done a really good job on it already. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing as well, and keep up the great work. Right. Sanji actually posted this work already. But there's no specific question actually. So for this week, I'd like to know everyone's thoughts on this. Oh, that's on the final post. So there's one thing that I really wanted to bring up here. And I think it comes down to what Sanji was saying themselves as well. Is there were a lot of iterations, a lot of trying to get things to work. But I think what summed it up really is from Sanji itself, is saying the scene would much look better without the helmet, but it's like me in a casino always chasing my losses, right? Oh, the Whip Wednesday tag wasn't removed? Oh, maybe that's it. Okay. Sorry about that. I probably just forgot it. But yeah, I think that's a thing to keep in mind. Like, because it basically comes down to this, right? You wanted to do a presentation for the helmet. But what you ended up with was you made like a full scene where the helmet feels like the thing that's the most disruptive to the whole thing, right? It feels so out of place now, where, yeah, just the way that you sum it up as well is like you've been chasing your losses that you kind of have to, at a certain point, have to be like, hey, look, what do I want to focus on? The helmet? Okay, we're going to focus on the helmet, put like a blanket underneath it or something like that, and just present it like that, and then move on. Because sometimes there is this principle. It's a little bit cheeky. It's a little bit in your face, but it's called the KISS principle. And KISS stands for keep it simple, stupid. Right? So what that means is that sometimes as artists we get a tendency of like, oh, we're gonna add things to it. It's gonna be so cool. It's gonna keep adding, and then you kind of lose sight of what it was all about in the end. So sometimes it's better to just be like, okay, the presentation is for the helmet. We're just gonna make it all about the helmet, and we're just gonna, yeah, just keep it to that. So yeah, that's just the only thing that I wanted to bring up. That sometimes it is good to be like, hey, we're gonna look at it from an objective perspective, and we're gonna see how I can learn lessons from this maybe for next time, or how I need to like improve this still, right? But yeah, just wanted to bring that up, Sanji. It's good that you got it on there, right? I mean, that's always a win. You've got it on your portfolio. You've learned your lessons. And it seems like you had a lot of fun. I think the latest animation does make a bit of sense, but I get that. I don't think it does necessarily. I mean, you've made an interesting animation, but the whole thing just doesn't feel like it meshes together. Like, it feels very, very disconnected, because I had a look at the post, right? And the post says like, hey, I had a lot of fun working with like blueprints and with visual effects and like all that kind of stuff. And you've done like a bunch of cool stuff here, right? This stuff is cool. But then I don't know how it all meshes together. Right? It just, what it feels like to me is like, oh, I have a bunch of cool ideas and they all work as like separate things, but they don't work together. If that makes sense. And there is cool stuff here, right? But like, I'll go back to like the beginning of this, right? Like, this was meant to be like a presentation for your helmet. That's how this started, right? That's where we started this project. We'll be starting something proper for once, considering both of my projects. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff in here, right? And you learn stuff as you do stuff, right? So like what you exactly like at least it's over, and the thing now to do is to really think about like, okay, what did I want to achieve and where did I go wrong? And I'm not saying that for you specifically, right? Like this is something that applies to all of us, including myself. There's a ton of projects on my portfolio, or like, well, not on my portfolio, that I didn't even show on my portfolio, where I was chasing something in the moment, and I've done a bunch of like, I don't know, a bunch of ridiculous stuff, right? And it's really nice to look at that in hindsight. But at that point, it was also like a big waste of time. And sometimes we have to be okay with that too, right? Because not everything that we do has to be like, oh, it needs to be a portfolio project, and then another portfolio project, and another portfolio project. And that gets stale at a certain point as well. You need to keep it fresh for yourself too. So like the stuff that I'm seeing is really cool, right? You're showcasing like a variation of like skills and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's a difference between like what we need to put on the portfolio and what is like just like fun times for us. And working on something you don't like takes longer and less committing. Well, that's also too. But then, yeah. Sometimes it's better to then, well, to put it in your terms, to not go to the casino. Right? Like at a certain point, you just have to realize that like you're just adding stuff and you're just gambling and all that kind of stuff. We'll remove from my portfolio when I have more pieces. That's fine. I mean, yeah. That is fine. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up like for the next thing, I would probably say if it's about like I should stop. I know. But it's hard, I know. But no, like you said, it's good. It's good that you finished it and that you're over it now, right? So you can finally kind of stop like going for jackpots, and you can look for the next thing. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. I think it was worth it to bring that up as well and have a talk about it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Sanji. I really appreciate it. All right, next one up is Camille. Let's have a look. Oh, the first shot is not a render shot. Wait, what? Oh, okay. My questions are: what is your understanding of the storytelling when looking at the pictures only? Okay. I haven't looked at the storytelling yet. But let's have a look. So what are we working with here? So we have a mining business here, and this is like the entrance of the mine, and then we have like a blacksmith shop here, right? Because we kind of got this logo that's happening. And then making weapons from the looks of it. But they also have this like cool little geode that they're trying to crack open. So yeah, what we're really dealing with is just, it's a mining colony that found this cool stuff and is probably, they're not making weapons with it because I'm not seeing it reflected, unless we're gonna have some glow inside here or something. Yeah. It's cool though. You kind of have like all the elements of like, hey, we're extracting the raw resources, and then they probably found something that has like magical components, and then they're probably going to use that in production somehow, right? But I think you got like a solid bones of the storytelling here. So let's see how far off I was. So the key info is it's a forge front. So run by a solitary and independent blacksmith who lives in the mountain hollow and has his own personal mine for raw materials. Okay. So it's not multiple people, it's just one blacksmith. And he sells equipment to adventurers. Okay. The blacksmith mines crystallized wood to craft weapons and enhance his abilities. Okay. Okay. I mean, some of that stuff is like hard to put into visuals, right? Like an independent solitary blacksmith. If you really wanted to put that in visuals, then I was expecting a shop that wasn't as like built out. But I mean, that's like a small kind of thing, right? I don't think that's like going to be game breaking. And then he sells equipment to adventurers, and that's what we have here, right? Which is like quite nice. So I think that was like pretty well to read. That was a fun exercise. I think that would be nice to do that more often for people in the future as well. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, number 2. How can I better represent that it's the fact that it's a blacksmith shop? The forge will be inside the house in a second environment. So I would not do that then. Oh, sorry, I kind of skipped over like the whole beginning here. So first of all, I'm new here, so welcome so much. I'm currently working on an environment designed to be a part of like an RPG style game, not just a standalone render. That is awesome. My professor only gave me negative feedback, frustrating me and impacting my motivation. I don't know how to satisfy them. New Whip Wednesday game mode unlocked, exactly. Yeah, that's interesting. So only negative feedback, frustrating me and impacting my motivation. It kind of depends on how people do that, right? I feel like I'm also like sometimes not the best about like making sure that we like keep people's motivation up, right? Because I'm so into the weeds of things most of the time. But we'll see what we can do. But your second part is I don't know how to satisfy them. Maybe that would be a good question to ask. Like, if they're giving you negative feedback, but they're not giving you like any ways on how to solve it, right? So let's say, that's what I try to do, right? I try to give people feedback, context, and then potential solutions, right? That is sort of the framework that I try to like wrap everything in. But if they're not doing that and they only give you like negative stuff, so you're not getting anything out of it, right? So I would just ask the question of like, hey, okay, you said that like this sucks, but like how can I improve it? You know, maybe something like that. Some back and forth communication can always help there. I know that also sometimes it's not easy to communicate with teachers, right? Depending on who the teachers are and stuff. But yeah, it's always worth a try. Because at the end of it, let's say they give you a really good explanation, that is going to help you, right? Because you're going to make better art because of it. Anyway, that point aside, thank you so much for that context though. Like the context there was really good. So the storytelling is really good already. I think it was a good exercise to tell me like, hey, don't read the story yet. I just want to see what you think of it. So that was good. Get a checkbox there. Hey, thank you so much for the feedback. My teacher doesn't like all my environment because the storytelling is too complicated, too blurry. So I should make it simpler. Storytelling is too complicated and blurry. So when we are diving into point number 2, right, which is where how can I represent the fact that it's a blacksmith shop a little bit better? We'll dive into that as well. I would say, but that's my personality, you know. So I think if they're saying the storytelling is too complicated and blurry, there are parts that are stronger than other things, right? So for example, the thing that is not as strong is also really hard to visualize, right? Is the part where they create weapons for adventurers, right? Because the adventure part is really hard to visualize. So we kind of have to do it in a way where it's just like, yeah, they make weapons, but we don't know who they are for, right? But making the weapon part like was pretty clear. I mean, they have all that stuff here anyway, so that's pretty good. And this is also a good exercise, right? I also don't want you to cut it all. So what I'm trying to do in my head, like as we're talking, is I'm trying to find the biggest opportunities to make the storytelling clearer. That's where we'll get into like the second point, right? So the second point is, how can I represent the fact that it's a blacksmith shop better? And you say the forge will be inside the house in a second environment. I would honestly say that if you want to represent the blacksmith's house better, I would bring the forge like to the outside. And what that means is maybe what we do is we open this house completely, and then we say like, hey, there's like a giant blacksmith forge in here, and this is where they're like making their weapons, and they have like a bunch of tools in here, and they have like a bunch more racks with like a bunch of weapons. But yeah, that is where they're crafting the weapons, and then maybe on this side we'll have like a counter where someone is selling the weapons, right? So they have like a little cash till, whatever. You know, you get the point. But then what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring like the identity of the blacksmith shop more to the forefront, right? So then we can see in one frame almost, like you have the mine, right? And then you have like, okay, this is where they break apart the ores and they maybe do like a little bit of smelting or something like that. And then they bring it inside to make the weapons, right? So you have your raw materials, then the refinement, and then the crafting, right? And then what we can do here is, okay, so they split open the ores, and you're doing this beautifully already here with just having these boxes where they add like a bunch of the ores, right? I would, let's see, how do we do this? Maybe even have like a wheelbarrow or something like that. We'll make like a wheelbarrow out of this guy. Right, so that wheelbarrow is going to be stock full of like a pile of these like ores basically. Right, so that's going to be the wheelbarrow. And then the wheelbarrow goes inside of the house on like a couple of planks that he made just to get like the wheelbarrow inside or something, right? And what I'm trying to do with all of this is now I have an asset that I can link to all the other sites. Let me see. Yeah, because now we can put like one of those wheelbarrows here. Right, so there's one over here that's empty. You have the one in the foreground that is full. And what I'm trying to do is, even if we have these detailed shots, we have a link between all of it, because we have one empty, one that has been like loaded up, right? Or we're doing the transportation. And then once we kind of broke everything up, then we're bringing it inside of the shop, right? So yeah, that would be my recommendation for number 2, is make the blacksmith part, and I'll put that in parentheses, right? Because the blacksmith to me is like, what is the core identity of that blacksmith? Because we need to bring that forward. And then we can even open up like the second story and kind of have like, I don't know, let's even make this like really big, right? So like the forge is huge, and maybe he has like 2 forges in the back or something like that. And then you have like these massive chimneys that kind of go up. And they're kind of weirdly linked together or something like that, right? And then you can still have like the wooden frame like in front of it, to kind of keep like this area like visually like interesting. But But you're seeing that, like, I'm trying to pull out the identity of it. So there's definitely stuff that you can improve there, but it's within the restrictions that you already have. And I think, yeah, the blacksmith was like the biggest thing that need more work. Toa Olisi is asking, would this piece be considered a small project or a big one? It's a big one, for sure. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of visual stuff that you have to create, and you need to be like knowledgeable about like a bunch of workflows already. So yeah, this is a big piece for your environment, for sure. Let's see. So, and feel free to pitch in, right, Camille? If that doesn't make sense, or if you have like any other ideas there, feel free to pitch in. Cool. Let's see. So you kind of have, yeah, them dragging stuff over here. They're breaking it all up. I will think about this. That's good. That is good. Yeah, because this could also be an interesting point where they are breaking up like this is basically where your raw ore goes to actually usable stuff, right? And what that means visually is that we have the one with the shell and the one without the shell, right? So you have like, let's say a bunch of stacks over here. Like a bunch of stacks in the background that are just like raw ore. And then you have like the usable ore in the containers already, right? And that's what they're transporting. That could be cool. Let's see, point number 3. A technical point. How can I create a window with that projects light to the inside, to the outside? How can I create a window that projects light onto the outside? You just make like a glass window, right? So it would be like a transparent surface that you can then just see like an actual physical light that comes from like the inside. That would be the way to like transmit light from like one surface to the other, right? So basically what that means is if we write down window, let's say you have your house and let's say you want to have a window here. You just put like a point light, and then you would have like your light coming out here by just having like a transparent surface. I wanted to keep a bit of mystery without revealing too much of the interior. So, like, that could be interesting if the mystery added something to the scene. You know what I mean? So if the mystery was in purpose of like, oh, this is like, let me give you an example, right? So let's say this is like an occult hideout, or like a cult that was like hidden in the mountain somewhere, right? That is like integral to the story of that cult, so you kind of want to shroud it in mystery, and they probably have like a hidden place and all that kind of stuff. What happens here though is you have a person who is a blacksmith and who wants to invite people to their store, so everything is going to be out in the open. So the mystery aspect of it just doesn't really work within like the context of the character itself. Especially if you want to, I would love if I can see that this is like a blacksmith from the outside in with like a bunch of cool stuff that we have to look at. instead of just having like a normal house that we then go into, right? It's also way better. We do this in games a lot, right? Like we try to make sure that the silhouette or the readability of an object reads really well from a distance. That you already set the person up to expect something that is in line with what they're expecting, right? So a really simple example of this is like having like a fire or like a smokestack coming from a fire, because then they know that something went wrong there and they'll expect danger, right? Whereas if you do it in an opposite way, where you see like, I don't know, a pharmacy sign from the distance, you know that it's highly likely that you're going to find like med kits and all that kind of stuff, right? So if this was like an actual game scenario, we're actually playing a game now, we're in an MMO and we're traveling in the mountains and we encounter this really cool place. If we see something that looks like a shop from the outside, we get attracted to it. And there is like multiple layers of this, right? Like because you have the sign already, which is helpful. But I think having these visuals is way more impacting than having like the shop logo here. Plus it also makes it a bit more unique as well. What I'm thinking about in the back of my head too is the feasibility. This is going really deep, right? So like the feasibility of that building being in this location as well. Whereas what you would probably expect is you would have like an entrance in a cave somewhere that is kind of just like cut out into the stone somehow. And that's how this person would live, right? But yeah. Hello, Bayad. Hello, good to see you. Let's see. And then number 4, don't hesitate to give your opinion on anything else. Yeah, I've pretty much done that through the entire time, right? But yeah, this is really cool though. Like it's a very ambitious project. I have to present it in my demo reel. Yeah, so like at the end of your studies, you got to do it for your demo reel. I think this is a very cool project to have. Like already the bones of the actual environment are in a really good place, right? Yeah. So cool stuff. This is really interesting to see. Oh, thank you, Moyat. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I mean, the feedback is good, right? From the teacher. I just hope that there was something like positive as well, right? It's very interesting. Thank you for your help. I will work a lot on that. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, best of luck with the environment. It's very cool to see. Yeah, sometimes you can tell, you know, when like a person is really having fun with what they're making. And I think this is the case. So yeah, looking forward to seeing more updates. And thank you so much. And yeah, welcome again as well. Thank you for participating in Whip Wednesday. Last one for today. Oh, no, I think this was actually wrong. Sorry, I think this was an issue. I think that was the last one already. I think I forgot to remove the tags. So sorry about that, Philip. Oh, let's do this instead. My hard drive crashed and I lost all my data. Restarting my project from scratch and hope to join the session next week or after that. Oh man, that sucks. It is a good reminder to get all your data backed up. Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever it gives you like the most favorable thing, right? Or even just like good old like hard drives that you back up like once a week. Get it, because this shit is important and I don't want you to lose more stuff, you know? I can always give like a recommendation if you're like further along in the journey. Get a network attached storage. That is what I have. I basically have like my own little server that I just back up everything on. So even if my PC completely dissolves and like, I don't know, completely bricks, I still have everything backed up anyway. Like everything goes on there really. Because yeah, this stuff is important. But yeah. You just caught me on the tail end as well, Muyad. But yeah, thanks for popping in here. I will say, thank you all so much for joining again. This was a very dense session. I tried to keep it like shorter, unintentional as well, so that we can kind of condense this and it doesn't run into like 4 hours because that gets kind of crazy for me. But yeah, it was lovely to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining me for this feedback session. I hope you have like a wonderful week full of creativity and that, yeah, you really push yourselves out there, because what we saw today was just amazing, right? From everyone. So keep pushing yourself, keep investing in your own skill set, and I will see you all, next week. Bye-bye. Good night, Chief. Bye, Joel. See you tomorrow.